contract to buy and sell real estate contract. This is essentially your purchase contract. This is where you write up an offer to present on a property. So I have a subject property I pulled up here just for reference. It's active, and I'm gonna go over some key features on what to look for, how to present the offer to the best, to present best to the seller, so you can get your offer accepted. So first off, let's go ahead and click on your client's name. It's gonna pull up, so you already got the buyer agency, and then we're gonna click Create New Contract. Okay, and then we're going to go to contract and buy real estate. Make sure it's residential, depending on which one you're doing, but typically, most likely, it's going to be residential. So you'll click that, and you'll go to create selected contracts. Okay, so now it's going to populate up here, and it should already have your client's name in because you already did the buyer agency with them. So that's already added there. And then we're just going to kind of go and fill in these blanks. So, buyer will take property. How are they going to take property? Joint tenants, tenants in common. It's only one person, so we know it is going to be in severalty, meaning just one. And then, ask your clients how they want to take title. If it's more than one, joint tenants, if one person dies, it goes to the other person. Tenants in common, they own a 50-50 share, or however many shares there are. For people, they own a fourth. So just ask them. Most of the times, they won't even know the difference. Explain that to them, make sure that they're aware, and just go over those key points on how they want to take title. Typically it's joint tenants, but you never do know. So here it says, click the seller's name. Well, how do we know the seller's name? Here's one quick way we could do it. So we'll select listing sent from matrix. That's our MLS. We'll go to MLS ID. Then we'll click Denver matrix. Then we'll click in that MLS ID. I'll just copy and paste it from this one. That's why it's really important to have that pulled up when you're doing this. And then you'll hit search. Okay, so now it did populate it. Okay, so kind of check over here. So we have Metro Brokers, Bellissimo Homes, Chris. We got Chris Hoover, and we got Chris Calcier. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, we got both of those there. We get the co-lister, those two. So it does match. Looks good. So we'll click the address. Here's where it's really important. You click all, select all, it's going to pick all this random stuff. So I don't suggest that. But what's important is click this box on the left, because if you don't, it's not going to pull this up. And then, kind of look at the two different dates or the addresses here. It looks pretty similar. They both look pretty similar. If they're both similar, I'd pick CTME just because that's how they presented it in the listing contract. And that's how it's going to kind of lock those. You'll see when I get down further, but it'll lock that contract with that other agent. And then you get the seller here. So we'll click that box. It's James E. Foster. Before we go any further, what you're going to do is come over to here, or you'll go to your main page, go to Realist. It's another good tool that we want to have pulled up as well. We want to make sure that person is the same in public records as stated there, because it could be a discrepancy later. So we got Trent in place. Double click that, and then what I'm going to do is going to drag this over to this side. So we're looking here. We got the address. Let's go back to this page too. Okay, so James E. Foster. So we got owner's name, James E. Foster. It's by himself too. So that's important too. So what if I came up here and they had James Foster and Mary Foster, and I only have one seller on here? Well, in order to sell the property, you're going to have both of those signatures on there. So it's going to be pretty important to make sure that you're double checking this, having these up, having it available for you to kind of check, because it's going to be really helpful throughout this process. Let's go ahead and click back here. So that is good. We click the seller. And then now broker. We'll make sure we click the left side again. Seems kind of, we got list 1995. I'm not sure what that's about. That's who's gonna come up. Um, Craig Hoover. In this circumstance, it's got the broker's license number. It's how he has it inputted. So into CTME, you typically want to take the CTME. It doesn't have the brokerage name here. It does have the license number. Um, we could always test the brokerage firm here. It's not stating anything there either. Let's check here. Okay. So this was tricky. It might come up later as an issue, because either way, we got Craig Hoover as the broker, and which is correct. The co-listing agent isn't on there though, but I think for this purpose, let's go ahead and stick with. I would go with MLS to be honest, but we do need the broker's license now. So let's go here. This was a little weird, but I would just pick this one probably. Okay, and then legal description, which is right here too. The village is at Riverdale. Yep, it looks good. We'll click that. Then we have remote controls for the garage. Typically, it's all. So I've seen people put any, but when you come down to it, any or all sounds the same, but we want all of them. You got them, not just any. And then parking facilities, 3-car garage, attached garage, and they don't have any other verbiages here, so you can click earnest money here. They got this here, association amount, $42 a month, and I would just leave that title abstract. Okay, then we're gonna import this stuff. Okay, so now you see it's auto-populated. Always double check, because sometimes when you do that, it'll pull the wrong city. So just make sure that everything looks good as it's auto-populated. The legal description is correct. Adams County, I've had that come up weird for a different county. Some of the agents just don't input it on their side properly. So when I go to do it, it's wrong. But us as professionals, we're going to make sure that we're looking at this. Okay, I've actually personally showed this house actually today. So I do and have seen it. Any offer that you present, make sure you've seen it. Make sure you personally have viewed it, not assistant, not prior broker doing it for you or did a favor for you. If you're going to write an offer, make sure you go visit it and you have knowledge of what you're looking at. I do know that it does have a water softener. When I was there, didn't have any solar panels, but did have a security system. So, depending on how you want to write the offer, how the property, if it's super popular, it has 10 offers already. Some of these things you're probably not going to want to ask for. Just because the more asks, the less your offer looks to them. Yeah, you got a fiduciary duty to your buyer. Make sure you explain to your buyer why you're doing these certain things. Due diligence is just another deadline that you're going to have to add on there that the seller and the listing agent don't want to see. It just gives you more outs. But you got plenty of outs, and you can explain that to your buyer. So when we get down to here, let's say personal property. Okay, so other inclusions. So we can go right here. So we can just copy and paste this right here. Appliances. It's gonna be, because a lot of times you might not even remember. So appliances: dishwasher, dryer, microwave oven, refrigerator, washer. Dishwasher. It was when I went, it was a black LG. So try to be descriptive, especially when they're nicer appliances. These weren't that great, but if it's a dishwasher, a refrigerator, you just put dishwasher, refrigerator, and it had a $3,000 refrigerator there, or a freaking Sub-Zero, and you get there and it's a garage fridge. It's happened because it's a refrigerator. You didn't specify Sub-Zero refrigerator. That's like a maybe $8,000-$10,000 refrigerator. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, when it's very important to your client and you know that they're higher end, be specific as you can. Anything else that you might see that your client likes, a particular chandelier that definitely, even though it is fixed to the property and does convey, if you got it in writing, it just protects you even more. Be overly, explain everything and put anything in there that you really want. There's a table maybe they want, or a play set in the backyard is a good example. Fire pit, or stuff that you would assume that they would stay, not necessarily always will. Same thing here when it comes to sheds or workshops, or like they couldn't possibly move that thing. Well, it has happened. Make sure you put in that shed. This particular property didn't have a shed, but you're gonna make sure you put that in there. And exclusions, this is why it's handy. See, I'm looking right over here. There's none, so I'm gonna make sure I put none. Because what happens is when you don't put anything in the box, what happens, it goes in and it says NA. But we want to make sure it's not NA, it's not non-applicable, it is none. So water rights also, there is none. I put that in there because it's not really non-applicable, because it is if the water rights come with it. Us living in Colorado, in the Midwest, it is a drought, very drought. Water rights are very rarely convey. So we'll keep on going here. Okay, now we get to, this will just all be NA, it'll automatically populate. So now we get to the dates and deadlines. Whew, this one's tough, right? This is what's going to take you the longest. So I made you guys a cheat sheet, essentially, and you can kind of use this, kind of pull that up too. So earnest money is easy. You're just going to do, so this is kind of let's start over. So let's go to the bottom. So this is how I always like to start it. Closing date. So first, we're going to pull up a calendar. We're going to have that pulled up too. And so today's the 4th, but we're going to give them till Monday. So there's our acceptance. We're going to give them till tomorrow. And we're going to give them till tomorrow at 7 p.m. is pretty typical. Okay? So now that we got the time, so now we're starting on the 5th. Okay, so 5th, it would be the acceptance if they accept our offer. So now we're looking at the 5th. So we're going to go, if we're just going to do a typical 30-day close, which I'm going to show you this, that's pretty typical in our market. So we're going to go 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 2nd of November. And then we got election day. Typically, I do not like to put a closing date on a Monday, because what happens if the lender needs some documents and it's Friday? All that stuff, those people don't work on weekends. So try not to do it on a Monday. Then you got election day, which, isn't like a holiday. So we'll come up with a closing date of the 3rd, okay? Okay, so we're going to do November 3rd. And possession, that particular house was vacant. So we can take possession at that time. And then we're going to put delivery of deed and funding. That essentially means when we're at the closing table, we sign those documents, the funding's gone through, you get the key right there at the closing table. So now that we have determined the closing date, now we can run our dates off of this closing time. So now we can go to our alternative earnest money. So if we get acceptance on the Monday, we get 72 hours. So let's go back to our deadline. So we got 72 hours after MEC. So Monday is that date. So 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be the Thursday. Okay. And then let's go to the next one. So this is kind of how you're going to just really get really good at it. And the more and more contracts you do, you're going to get really good at it, because you're going to really know what these dates and deadlines are used for. This is very powerful, the dates. And how you present these dates and deadlines when you go present an offer to the seller is really important too. They don't like to see a bunch of outs. They don't like to see a bunch of things stringing along. So they like to have everything done in a timely manner. So we're going to do record title deadline. Okay, so we got the 5th is our acceptance. So 7 days is going to be the 12th. So we got 7 to 10 days here, right? So 7 to 10. We want to see that here soon. So 5, 7. So let's give them, I would say around 8 days. Sometimes it gives them a little bit more. and I like these to coincide with my inspection. So they're gonna get the title work done. The seller does the title work, and so at the same time they're getting that title work done, we're doing our due diligence as buyer agents and buyers, getting our inspection done, getting the trades in there that we need, anything and everything that we need to do to check that property while they're doing that. So if something happens between the inspection or title work, we're not holding up that property for them, and we can move on and go too, because our buyer might need to get out of a lease. There's a lot of different scenarios. Essentially, keep those consistent. So we got acceptance day of the 5th, 7 days from that, week later, which gives us a weekend, gives them a weekend. We don't usually want to do it on a Monday. I'd say the 13th. And then we're going to do the objection next day. We're going to do 1 day after that. Same thing. So these 2 dates, the off record and record title, should be the same. So we're going to do that. Okay. And then same thing with these 2 dates. They should be the same. That's going to be the 14th. Excuse me. And then resolution, your buyer's going to get all this information. We got all these objections. Or I've never had any objections, but if they do, we want to have some resolution time for them, so we give them 1 more day after the objection deadline dates. So I hope that makes sense. Right of first refusal, it's 7 to 10 days after, or where are we at? Right of first, you're gonna have to ask, if you guys have any further assistance on this, I would steer away from this right now. But I can go over that in depth on a whole different video. Okay, so this particular property does have an association. Okay, and we want these documents by the time that we finish our inspection, which inspection, we'll get to that here, is going to be 7 to 10 days, right? So here's our 7. They got the title work going. So let's do the association documents by the 14th. And then termination on the 15th. And then I'll show you here in a minute what I mean by that. So seller's property disclosure, lead-based paint. Seller's property disclosure, you typically want that at the end of by the time you deliver the earnest money, because it just makes sense. So you got 3 days. I want to know what's wrong with the property, because I want to know before I even order an inspection report or an inspector out there. So I usually do it the same day as the alternative earnest money deadline. So that's going to be on the 8th. And if we look here at, I think I have that there. Let's see. So it's probably 72 hours. Yep. So 72 hours, same date as the earnest money and before the inspection deadline. It's kind of what I just explained there too. So, let's see. Lead-based paint, this is built before 1978, so that would be an NA. We just leave it blank, it'll auto-populate NA. Okay, so new, let's see, so new application deadline. So at this point, your buyer should have filled out and got pre-approved. In this market, it's just, you shouldn't be out there showing properties to them unless they're pre-approved. If you do, your main objective is get in front of the buyer. Get in front of the buyer as soon as possible. If they want to go see a property, I will, and then I'll explain the process to them. Then I will send them to the lender, because my main objective is get in front of them, and then I will, take it from there, and just really reiterate the market. Tell them how fast it is, how important it is. Most agents can require this, a pre-approval. So it's not mandatory, but it is just very essential. So at this point, they should be completed. So completed, okay? Now, new loan termination deadline. Now, this is really important. So it gets a little tricky. So let's look at the closing date is the 3rd. And so November 3rd. So this new loan termination deadline is when they got to fulfill their loan, and that's the last they can terminate. So we close on the 3rd. So typically, I would do, let's see what we have here. I said new loan termination 2 to 5 days prior, which is about right. We got a 30-day close. You could probably push it a little bit closer to the 5 days. It's what the seller is going to like and want to see. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tuesday. They got any prior docs? Maybe do midweek 28th is kind of what I kind of. And this is all going to depend on what days and closing days you have and how fast we are. We're doing on a 30-day time frame here. So buyer's credit information, that should already be completed with their loan approval. Disapproval of buyer's credit information deadline, I leave it blank because that's just another out for your client. The sellers aren't going to want to see that. That should already been done. They should already know what their credit is. So, and then this is if you have a pre-existing loan and all this stuff. This is not typical here, all this right here. So, if you have any questions about that or each situation in particular, ask me and I'll go over this if we need to adjust these deadlines. It's not typical. You shouldn't utilize that just yet. Who knows? Everything is, but yeah, if you have a certain loan, and I'll be working with you guys hand in hand. So now we're at appraisal, which we're not sure yet. So let's go ahead and leave that. Go to inspection objection, okay? So let's get our deadlines lined up here. Inspection objection. Deadline is going to be 7 to 10 days, right? So we have acceptance on the 5th. Here's 7 days. But we wanted to coordinate this, remember, with the title work. So we're going to do the 14th, which, and then termination. So that's 1 week, 7, 8, 9 days. Then that'll kind of give us right into 10. The shorter the better, if you really can. It looks better. So, in this situation, if I was up against multiple offers, we got a whole week. We got like a whole week and an actual weekend. So I would probably push it a little day sooner, maybe even the 12th. That would make it look better. Termination, give it a day. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have to write up an inspection objection. And I'll show you that in a different video. But you're going to have a few to several items that you're asking the seller to fix for you. Sometimes they need to get certain trades out there to see if they want to fix that. If it's a sewer line or a roof, they're going to want that proper contractor to go out there, evaluate it, say, hey, well, it's going to cost me $10,000 for the roof. Or, hey, it's only going to cost me $500 for the roof. So when they go send that resolution back, they can say, hey, well, yeah, we'll fix the roof. It's only going to be, they already know it's going to be $500. Instead of just sending it back without having that proper trade out there and say, yeah, we'll fix that roof. And then now they get hit with a $10,000 fine they weren't aware. Which isn't our problem on the buy side, but they might need some time. And don't be alarmed if they come back and want an extension if we have a lengthy objection. Okay, so termination resolution, they added the termination deadline as of 2020. Never did have that there. It was always an objection and resolution. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. I put them on the same day because what happens with a resolution, so what happens is you go over the objections, you send it over to the seller, and they take all those things and they send back a resolution. So essentially, your objection is sending the ball into their court, and then they send back the resolution. Then the ball goes back into your buyer's court. Now, if your buyer signs that resolution, great. We go and we keep the contract. It keeps on moving. Now, let's say they don't want to sign it. They're not going to fix that $10,000. They're not going to fix the roof, and that was very important to your buyer. Now, if your buyer doesn't sign it and that date expires, this whole purchase agreement is void. It's it's the same thing as a termination. Some agents like to give an extra day. What does that do? Well, if you do that, so now the resolution passes, and then they can still have an extra day to terminate. Or I've seen this done before where they put the termination deadline the same day as the objection deadline. So basically, it's kind of the same thing if you think about it, because now you send it over the objections, and now it's terminated on that same day, but you also have a separate termination resolution, because if your buyer doesn't sign it, it'll also terminate. So I like to put it on the same day as the resolution. And different situations, we'll go over that, and that might have been really confusing, and I apologize, but this is kind of how I like to do it, and it looks better to the seller because there's not another out essentially. So once that resolution terminates, the inspection is it's done, or we move forward, or we terminate on that same date. It just makes more sense. Property insurance termination deadline. Make your clients aware that they're gonna have to get shop around for hazard insurance, property insurance here, and get some quotes. Might be in flood zone, might be a lot of different factors, and might be an additional $200 on that they weren't factoring in, and maybe they don't qualify for that loan now because their DTI, their debt to income was super tight. It might be in a flood zone. I've seen it. There's several in Denver Metro, and it requires additional insurance. So have this the same date termination deadline as your inspection termination, so 13th. So in this same time, they're inspecting the property, they're looking out for, they're shopping around for property insurance, all that good stuff. Okay, so due diligence, documents, deadlines. This is gonna be like, all the manuals on the furnace. They got a water softener. They got like, some of those things here that were stated in the where'd I go? Right here. Okay, so as part of the due diligence here, did it have solar panels? Did it have water softener, security systems? They're gonna want some of those documents because maybe the solar panels was a lease. So you got to take over that lease. In order to take over that lease, you got to be approved for that loan on that lease. So they can pull credit again. They want to make sure that the buyer is qualified to take over that. And now if they got to take on additional loan, that could be another $100, $200 a month. Now the lender comes into fact. So you want to really know these things. You want to know them soon. So due diligence comes next. Where are we at here? And then we're going to skip back up here. I know it's redundant, but it just runs smoother. They should have it in order, but they're not. Okay, so due diligence is going to be typically 7 to 10 days again. We want them to end. We want them to coincide with the inspection. A little bit prior to it because you want to kind of see those. To make it, you want all that information to see if it's something that you got proper manuals on the solar, all that, the water softener. That's some things that can you could ask the inspector to when he's there. So let's keep these the same, and you want all these dates to kind of end. So now we got inspection, we got due diligence, we got property insurance, we got all this stuff is going to all terminate. The association terminate. They're all going to terminate within that same 7 to 10 days. So when you're presenting an offer, it looks cleaner, and the seller and the listing agent is definitely going to appreciate that. So we'll do this delivery at that on the 12th, and then just essentially give it each day. You're going to give a day to look them over. Okay, you got some objections on these, and then you got resolution the next following day. Okay, conditional sale. Now, if your client is selling a property and it's contingent upon them selling it to buy another property, this is where that deadline is going to go. So the conditional sale is going to be the deadline that your client has to sell their property in order to buy this one. So let's just keep a scenario like they do. Okay, you got it under contract right now, and you have a let's see. Sorry about that. I got a little sidetracked. Okay, so you gotta want to coincide those dates with the sale of it, but also with the lending, because you need that. They need those proceeds. Let's say they need those proceeds from selling that house to buy the new one. So the new house. Okay, we got a new loan termination on the 28th for this property that we're putting the offer in on. Okay. So we need this one sold, and we need the proceeds before the 28th, right? Because we need those proceeds. So I give a couple of days. I would say the 26th, 2 days prior to the new loan obligation on the new house, because we want everything to fund. We want it to clear. We want the wires to go through. You could do a double close on the 28th if you had to. just ask me, talk to me about that. If we have to do something like that, we could always make that happen if we have to. But keep the stress level down. Give yourself 2 days. Lead-based paint, we don't have any lead-based paint, so we're not going to worry about that. So now let's go back up to appraisal. Okay, so now that we know what date the inspection is going to be done on, is going to be terminated, or we're going to go forth on the 13th. So let's bring up these deadlines. So 14 to 21 days. So we got a 30-day close. Okay, good. So we got the inspection done by the 13th. All right. And then we don't want to order that appraisal until we know that we're past the inspection, because your buyer's most likely going to have to pay for that. So, so we're going to have to kind of have the appraisal deadline typically another week after, I would say safely, gives the lender enough time. In this market, we contracted on the 5th. We have until the 13th, but hey, if you got get that inspection done as soon as possible. Get those objections out, because if there's nothing really on there, go ahead and order that appraisal as soon as you can. After you have done the inspection, though. Maybe not essentially after the inspection objection. We got past this part, because if there's not major issues that your client will walk on, if it's just, okay, well, we need this leaky faucet fixed and clean the furnace. Those two things, if those sellers don't fix those, is your buyer going to walk? Probably not. Ask them, but, if those are the two issues that you guys are only going to go after, then just order the appraisal right away. So anyway, okay, so appraisal deadline is about 14 to 21 days. We got the inspection done by the 13th, so let's just go ahead and do it the 20th, a week later. Have it done, had it ordered and in and completed by then on the 20th. And then typically it takes a couple of days to get back. So let's go ahead and give them the 22nd. Give them a couple days, and then resolution on the 23rd. Okay, so now when we're looking at our dates, so we got the 23rd is pretty much, we got the inspection done, we got due diligence, we got all this stuff is already done. We get past the appraisal, and then, everything's pretty much golden after this. So we got from the 23rd to, we need the new loan termination to the 28th. That gives them, so you want to make sure you're watching these deadlines. Okay, so we got 5 days after everything is settled on the appraisal. It's gone to underwriting. 5 days should be plenty. So you see how I did that? And you'll kind of start noticing these and really knowing, understanding them more, the more and more you do these. So that's why I'm kind of going really in depth on the dates and deadlines, because this is really what takes you forever to kind of do and understand. But if you kind of do it the way I kind of just showed you, it should make it a little easier, utilizing this cheat sheet I got here. Now, new ILC, this is probably more likely for acreage properties that don't have defined boundary lines. You probably learned that in real estate school. You have the different ways, you have the pins. And so, in this market, I probably wouldn't push. I wouldn't probably add any more deadlines. If you do, make those the same as the inspection time frame. If you don't, I probably wouldn't put the due diligence documents deadlines right here. I wouldn't give them any deadlines, because it's just another out. Just in this market right now. Not that I wouldn't ask them for them and want them. There would just be no objections to them. Okay? So essentially I would put a delivery deadline, but leave these two blank right here. If I was going to send an offer right now in our hot market. Okay, so now we have all these dates and deadlines. Everything looks good. Just kind of double check. Okay, we're all good. Now we're going to move on to the purchase price and terms. Okay, so now this is where your lender letter would be important, and so they're gonna, depending on what kind of loan you have, I'm just gonna do a basic scenario on an FHA loan. Let's say it's CHAFA down payment assistance too, just because this might be pretty typical with your buyer clients today. So we're gonna do an FHA. Okay, so purchase price. Okay, let's go back to the property. So you've already gone over some scenarios with your client, um, and it's going to be important to call this listing agent. You're gonna call up Craig, or whoever they specify here. You're gonna always make sure you read all of this confidential part, because look at what it's telling me. Showings begin on Saturday. Offers, it's going to give you a lot of information that most agents don't take the time to just read, and it's going to make your offer look way better than the other offer because you're following the simple freaking directions. Okay. um Please submit an offer by Monday, 10/5, 2 p.m. Offers will be reviewed by 4 p.m. that day. So when we wrote ours in, when we get acceptance date by 5, I read this already. So offers in by Monday. We're submitting ours. Let's just say, we're just making this, our scenario. We're submitting it today. Yeah, and then we're gonna have acceptance of the 5th, like they're asking. We just gave them more time, so we essentially could have changed review offers at 4 p.m. that day. Okay, 30 days or less closing desired. So now they're just saying, because I know the house is vacant. At this point, I would ask the lender of my buyer client, say, hey, asking for 30 days. 30 days is good. Can you do a 21 day? If that lender is confident and says, yes, I can do a 21 days, we already got most of your clients' stuff. They're pretty, they're they got a lot of factors on the lending side. But just ask your lender, hey, I'm going up against a couple of offers here. Could you do a 21 day close confidently and see what they say? If they can do it, then, get with me. We get to really tighten up these dates. That's what I would do. Because right there, I already know the house is vacant. They're asking for a quick close. They need to sell this. They need to sell the freaking property. So, the listing agent uses CTM. Most of them do. That's what we're on right now. Okay, so here we go again. Pre-approval letter or proof of funds required. And then seller reserves the right to accept any acceptable offer at any time. So what does that mean? I put that in all mine too. It means, yeah, they're asking for all the offers to be in by the 5th by 2 p.m. But if you come in strong, you come in fast, you come in high, you come in strong, that's what we want. We want them to accept it. Oh my gosh, I don't even care. I don't even want to wait till 2. Let's just go ahead and accept it. That's how we beat them. Okay, so these are very important to read. Okay, and then no escalation clauses. So I tend to use escalation clauses when I'm up against multiple offers. They're saying they don't want it. They just want our highest and best offer. Then seller has instructed agent not to submit any love letters. Do I use love letters? That's when your buyer writes a letter to the seller, just explaining, we're a family, got 3 kids, they picture themselves playing in the backyard, and they really love the school day. I utilize every aspect I can. If they don't say this, I'll have them put it in. So the reason why they state not to, because some of them tend to, it could be very borderline fair housing infringement, just because they could be picking yours over somebody else's because they really liked your letter or something. So and then that's pretty important. So for inquiries, call Craig Hoover. Okay, so that's who I would call before I even started this offer. I would have called Craig and say, hey Craig, this would be my typical phone call. Hey Craig, this is Jason Moscato with HomeSmart. Just got finished showing your property over there on Trenton. Just wanted to kind of see, what your seller is looking for. The buyers are super excited about the property, and we're in the process of submitting an offer. And then you just kind of be quiet. Just let him talk. Don't say anything else. Okay, he's gonna kind of build up the property a little bit. Well, before I submit this offer, okay, well, it looks like the house is vacant, so your seller's most likely looking for a quick close. Yeah, okay. Most likely doesn't need any kind of post occupancy, right? Yeah, okay, no. If and you can kind of just pick their brain. Do you have any offers? This is very important. Do you have any offers in hand as of now? He could say yes, or he could say no. And it's all going to depend on his listing agreement too, but most of the time, it stipulates in the listing agreement, which I'll go over that in another video, whether they can disclose if they have offers in hand or they can't. In this market, it's only beneficial for them to disclose they have multiple, they have an offer in hand or not. So they're gonna say, yes, I have an offer in hand. Oh, great. Okay, great. Is it above list? And just be quiet. Is it list price above list? And then just be quiet for a minute. Let him talk. If it's $1 above, he can say, yeah, it's above listing. If it's list price, he'll just say list price. Can he give you an exact amount? No, he can't. But can they? Do they? Yes, they do. I'll ask. It's his fiduciary duty. It's his responsibility not to disclose it. It's not our duty not to ask. And most agents don't know that. So I will ask, hey, yeah, it's over list. Is it, if I came in at 10,000 over, would I look pretty good? Let's see what they say. So certain questions, and I'll kind of go over that too with you, and we can go over some scripts and stuff like that on how to really ask the right questions to get the answers that we want. So, essentially, purchase price. So let's just, in this scenario, let's say they have one offer in hand. Okay. So I'm going to probably suggest that my client come a little higher. So the first offer in this market is probably not going to come in at list price. They're probably going to start at $5,000. So if I wanted the house, they really love the house, let's come in at $10,000 over, okay? That's what I suggest. The property's gotten a lot of attention. This is the first weekend. We want them to pull this property. So I'm going to recommend to my buyer we come $10,000 over this. So let's go ahead and just make the numbers clean too. Let's go $500,000, okay? And then the earnest money is typically going to be 1% of the property. I wouldn't suggest that your client come in any higher. It's just not necessary. If we're in multiple offers, you could. If you look down here in the confidential section, they're asking for $4,000. In this scenario, I'd actually tell my clients to come actually $1,000 more, makes them look better, stronger. Here's your brokerage percentage you're gonna make. So let's do earnest money of $5,000. Okay. Now the new loan. So now this is where your calculator is gonna come in play. So you can't quite see mine, but we'll do $500,000. And typically, if we're doing a CHAFA down payment assistance, it's going to be 3%, 3.5% down. So you're going to put 500,000 times 0.035, and that's going to give you 17,500. 17,500. Okay. So now that we know what that is, we're going to have 17,500. So we're going to minus 500,000 minus the 17,500. That gives us $482,500. Okay. So we're gonna put new loan amount $482,500. Okay. So now that we see it, so now it's asking, oh wow, well, we need $12,500 for cash at closing. Okay, so what did I do wrong? I did something wrong here. So okay, so we'll leave it at that. We're gonna deduct the earnest money too, because that's gonna be coming off from that. So what we'll do is, and it's really easy when you have like a lender letter. So I typically don't do this. The lender letter is going to state what terms and stuff they have. So you are going to find that on that lender letter, and you'll just input those numbers in there. So yeah, 3.5% is typically going to be 12,500. So yeah, I'm right. I just got a little turn around here for a second. And then the 5,000 that they put towards the earnest money will probably go towards closing costs. If your buyer doesn't have closing costs, essentially we could ask the seller for 5,000 right here. Seller concessions. So let's just say we're gonna ask for 5,000 in concessions. So what are we doing here? So we came 10,000 over, but we're asking for 5,000 back. Okay. So in this scenario, and this is what I'm really known for, and a lot of my buyers, is we've given them 5,000 over purchase price, and we got 5,000 coming back for concessions. So what does that mean? That means they're paying for all their closing costs, and then now we have 12,500 that we're gonna get from Chaffa, right? So essentially, all they got to come to the table with is the earnest money of 5,000, which they're most likely gonna get back, because on an FHA loan, you can only, with 5,000 and then 5,000, 10,000 is gonna be way too much for closing costs. So with an FHA loan, maximum they can get back at closing is $2,000. So what did I just do here? I just got them a house for $3,000, because they're gonna get $2,000 back at closing, and they only had to come out of pocket $3,000. All their closing costs is taken care of, and then Chaffa is taking care of the down payment. If you can get that earnest money, I mean, you can go a lot less too. I mean, I can get it down to $2,000. If this scenario, if they didn't have any money, we could do $2,000. Let's say that's the money they're getting back at closing, because we're asking for $5,000 in concessions. Boom. They essentially just got this house for no money out of pocket. Initially $2,000 up front, but they get the $2,000 back at closing. We go over some of those different scenarios later, but let's just stick to 5,000 here. I just want to kind of play around with this to show you a little bit different scenarios. Let's go with 0, because this particular property, we probably couldn't do that. We'd have to really come up higher on this number, and if we had to ask for concessions, we just, you raise the purchase price, it's going to get funded into there anyway, financed. So, okay, seller concession 0. Okay, so earnest money, who is it paid? It will be paid and held by who? Where do you find that at? Well, it's right here. Okay, so we're going to be land title. So you'll put land title, and they actually specify an actual closer, Amanda Pacheco. That's actually my closer that I use. She's done many deals for me. So I'll just put exactly in there, exactly what they want. Okay, so sorry I spent a little too much time on those two, but those are probably the most important parts and the most time consuming. So I'm gonna go ahead and start here. Okay, and then we're gonna come down here. Okay, in this scenario, your client's an FHA Chaffa, which is down payment assistance program. Time of payment, available funds. So they're asking about this number right here. Cash at closing, $12,500. Does the buyer have that money as of this date of contract? They do not. Okay, because they're gonna get the money from Chaffa. So when I see a purchase contract come across this as my listing, as a listing agent, I'll automatically know, hey, they're getting that funds from somebody, and it's most likely going to be a down payment assistance. And then I'm going to check this loan limitations, FHA. And then all this stuff is just assuming a loan from a seller, which we're not doing. There's no seller or private financing. And then financial conditions. This is just going to be common verbiage here. Let's just keep on rolling. We did the hard part. So FHA is not going to lie. It's a federal housing authority. It's a federally funded loan product. They're not going to lend to they're not going to lend any funds that doesn't appraise for that amount. So we're going to put our purchase price in there. Okay. All right. And that's our purchase price that we stipulated here. So it have to appraise for this value. That's what that's stating. Cost of the appraisal is cost associated to the buyer in this market. If it was a different market, like a buyer's market, we'd probably come after the seller to pay for that. This market is too hot of a market. It's a seller market. So the buyer's going to definitely pay for that. Okay, so we're going to kind of just skip this association verbiage. You can have your client read that stuff. You can go over it with them if you want. And let's see. So we're gonna have the seller selects the title insurance company. They have, and it's land title. And then let's see. Owner's extended coverage. It will. And that's pretty typical in this market. It will come with it, and it's going to be a cost associated to the seller. The seller is presenting to the buyer a clean and clear title, with it clear of, unrecorded mechanic liens, gap period, party, unrecorded easements, all that good stuff. And in this market, it's very typical for the buyer to ask for that owner's extended coverage and it be paid by the seller. So there's different scenarios where you probably wouldn't, but typically even in multiple offers, I always put that, and I've won. So this is all the common verbiage here. I'm just going over the highlighted areas here. This is your ILC section. So if we were doing an ILC, we could go over that separately. It's not very common. You could put you could always check it to have it there. Just make sure it's a cost associated buyer. You're going to do a new survey, and then it's going to be buyer. You can always click it just to be safe. If your buyer doesn't want to do it, it doesn't make a difference. Could be safer just to put it in there. Like I said, in this market, you're trying to protect your buyer, but you're also trying to get the house for them. You just want to explain the differences between these, why you're leaving it blank and why you're not. The reason why you're not, because all the other all the other offers are going to have it blank probably. And having it like here and not stipulating any deadlines is still safe though. But, the cleaner your offer is, the better it is. And then let's keep on going down. Okay, so other documents, the due diligence ones, this is where you would put, any and other, if you have any of the leases, or, if there's a prior lease, you want to see that. Any other things on the solar panels, right here, you want to put that under due diligence delivery deadline. These are the things that you're asking for in specific, okay? So, if you got solar panels, you want solar panels, you want water softener there, you want all the paperwork on, I don't know, if there's a foundation repair, it's pretty important. Any kind of roof certification, if you just got a new roof, you want the warranties, you want all that stuff, you would stipulate that in this section here. Okay, now we have a property to sell, it's at, we stipulated in there in the simulated thing here, so we put 1, 2, 3 Main Street, Denver, Colorado, 80233, I don't know, that's mine. So that's where you put the property. Or you can say see additional provisions and then write that down there, and then you can explain your contingent property a little bit more. I tend to just try not to stress so much on it. I just slip the date in there, and then by putting in additional provisions, I just feel like it's like putting way too much attention to it, because it could be a disadvantage for your client, because they got to sell something in order to buy this property. If something goes wrong with the one they're selling, then it could stipulate the one that they're on the one that they're selling, so and there could be a chain reaction when it comes to contingent properties. So yeah. So down here, source of potable water. Typically we look here. It usually has a little papers right in here. It would have a little supplemental sheets right here, and sometimes it would have the seller's property disclosure in there. It would have the source of water, if it has a well or not. This one does not. Typically doesn't. So you'll get the seller's property disclosure, by that date that we specified above. There is no well, and does not acknowledge, a receipt of a current well permit. So, and this will all make more sense as you kind of do more and more. This is just all your common verbiage again. Closing instructions are not executed with this. Like I said, sometimes they'll have the supplementals there. It doesn't. But they usually send all this out with all the disclosure, source of water, seller's property disclosure, mold, the lead, all that stuff will come out. They'll send all those at the same time. Usually designated by, you could say, mutual agreement. And then here's a kind of a tricky one too. So typically, special. If you're representing the buyer, okay, so this one's kind of hard to kind of explain, but I'll try to explain it real quick. General warranty deed and special warranty deed are pretty much the two, common ones, unless it's a personal representative deed. If it was a estate sale or a trustee, which we already know from the public records that it's not. We could check there too for anything outstanding on it. That's from all the public records. You want to really send that to your client so they can make the best decision too. They can go over all that stuff. Essentially, special warranty deed is going to warrant from the time that this current seller owned the property till now. General warranty deed is going to warrant the property from the whole entire chain from when it was built in 2006. So we got 14 years. We can go back and see when he bought it, which was, let's see. He bought it in, so looks like he was the original, well, no, he bought it in 2014. And he bought it from Morrison Homes, sold it to Leah, or Leanna, or whatever, I don't know. And then he bought it in 2014. So he's only had it. He bought it for $349. So this is some helpful information. He bought it for $349, and now he's selling it for $440 or $490. 6 years later. So, it could make a difference on, how your offer is and everything else. But, so basically a special warranty deed, back to where I was, sorry, I get sidetracked. Special warranty deed is going to warrant it from, the 6 years. That was actually my birthday. Okay, and then, but we got that owner's extended coverage up above, which is going to cover any kind of things that might have been missed prior to it. And the reason why I always say special warranty deed is because that's what the sellers are going to really like and want to see. And unfortunately, it's a seller's market, and we're up against multiple offers. Once again, you want to present this offer to show into the seller's eyes the best, the best. So that's what I would suggest my client do, and that's what I would explain to them when I'm explaining this to them. Okay, closing service fees. It's typical to split that service fee. Land title, land title charges $340. You could call that title company and ask what their closing service fees. It's usually around $340, $350, and it's very typical for the buyer and the seller to split it. It's not the closing cost; it's the closing service fee. That's $340. Status letter and record change fees is a cost associated typically to the seller. They want to change and record their name into your name from the association. It's very typical to put seller. You could, and it can get a little pricey too. It could be maybe about $150 to $300. So, when it comes down to it, if your buyer just doesn't have much cash, you're gonna have to really be upfront and ask, how much cash you got, because we're asking about earnest money. We're asking about, we need inspections. Appraisals, it's really good to be upfront about some of these costs. That way they know, and they're not going to be a shocker later. Some people are like, I got no money, man. Well, we're going to have to click all this. We'll just click seller, private transfer fee. If there was any kind of, you could put not to exceed, typically, I don't know, $10. And then, water certificate, water district. Click those. Seller, water, sales and use tax. There shouldn't be any unless you sold some stuff, some personal items maybe or something like that in there. But water transfer fees definitely always going to be a cost associated to the seller. You can click that just in case there is any, or if you negotiate anything later. This is all going to just depend on the scenario. If it has an HOA, I'd always get it from the seller. Usually always split this. And water, definitely the seller, because why water? Water is a lienable item. We want to make sure that is conveyed and transferred properly. Title company is going to take I think like $350 to $500 for an escrow from them, even if the water bill is up to date. So yeah, that's that. Okay, we're almost done. All right, keep going down. Most recent mill levy and most recent assessed valuation. That's taking the valuation of the land and the valuation of the structure on the land, the real property, and they come up with assessment that's typical in our market. And that's very that's how it's assessed today. There's no rents. Association assessments. Always click seller. This one does have a association. You can always double check before presenting an offer. You can usually find the HOA here. You could call them. Here's the number. Say, hey, I'm inquiring about the Village of Riverdale. Is there any kind of special assessments that have been assessed to that property? Because by clicking that, this is stating that the seller, any special assessments prior to this closing date is going to be the obligation of that seller. And then if there is a special assessment, I would write it down, whatever it is, in specific, and write that in here. This is the other prorations here. We'll keep going. Is going to be any other items of record. That's basically it's like on like larger properties that are don't have public water, like the sewer, like propane, interest, anything that's in prorations. It could be water softener to any of those things. So on this one, possession date, let's say in our scenario, we're selling a property, the contingent property member, and we're buying this property. So possession of this property on that date is going to be very important. So when it comes to this is asking if they don't deliver that property on that possession date and time, we're going to charge, typically I do about if it's reasonable, $200, even $100 a day, if, depending on how much time we got or give them. But in this scenario, I would probably put $300 a day. Because, if they got to get a hotel or if they got to, move all their stuff, or, it could be a huge inconvenience. So when the deadlines are tight, make this number high because you want to really put pressure on them if they got to get junk out the backyard or stuff like that. So you just never know. So we're almost done. So let's say we did have to have, there was vacant, they needed 2 weeks after closing to get into the property or to give you possession. You would check this box right here. That's your post-occupancy agreement. It's going to follow this contract. You want to make sure that it's part of this, and you click this box. These boxes are very important. Okay, so here comes our thing again. So computation of period of days. So in our thing, on our buyer agreement, we put will. If we were going to do a fast closing, like I was saying, if this one particular, if that lender said he could do it in 21 days, boom, I'm going to click will not. Because we need it every single day. If it lands on a Saturday, it's due on Saturday. No messing around. We need to hurry up and move. We ain't got time for that. So this one that we wrote up in this scenario is 30 days. I'm going to give them the deadlines. And always be aware of if we do have any holidays coming up in this. We got Halloween, but is that really a holiday? Or Veterans Day is coming here. So really make sure be aware, cognizant of those dates and deadlines. They're very important. And you can utilize specific performance. I've never used it. I would not even advise it, even a multiple offer situation. You can read this verbiage here, but seller may elect to cancel his contract and all earnest money. Just gives the seller way too much power. And then here we go again. Legal. This is a legal contract. Make sure your clients know. Mediation. We're going to do mediation first. Earnest money dispute. Here's what would happen. You can kind of go over that with your clients. Termination. Right to terminate. Those are all your stuff here. Electronic notice, email, or I just put CTME because that's what basically we're going to be doing the most. And then we got additional provisions. You can put, there's clauses here. And I want you guys to be aware of these. You can put an as-is clause. Let's just look at a couple of these. Buyer understands the property's as is, without faults, and you can put that in there to make your contract look better, and then you can take out that inspection objection deadline, and you could take off the inspection resolution deadline, and just have an inspection termination deadline, and put this in there. It states basically, hey, we're going to do an inspection, but we're not going to object to anything. And this could be a very helpful tool. So you could utilize some of these things. If it's a newer house, or maybe there's some couple items that might only cost you $1,000 to fix. Hey, okay, I'll take it to win this offer, and we can go over different scenarios as we go. Here's a couple other ones. Backup offer, $500 over. We can put something like, in the event of multiple offers, this is like a escalation clause here. $500 above the highest acceptable offer. This one could be cool. This gives you the highest offer over anybody. There's also appraisal gap guarantee. This is important too sometimes. If the home does not appraise the contract prior, the buyer agrees to pay $5,000. This is very typical in our market with all the multiple offers, because we're going $10,000 over purchase price, right? But what if it only appraises for the $490, or what if it only appraises for $480, 10 below, and that's typical. That's typical because the houses are getting they're selling so fast, and there's multiple offers driving these prices up, and the appraisals can't keep up with it because appraisals go off of closed deals. So that could be very handy. Just like I said, ask your client how much money they have out of pocket. Do not put that in there if they don't have it. But that's a way to get your offer accepted over others, especially if they have cash in hand. Let's look at one more. So these are going to be very typical. So that one, the appraisal one, and then there's that escalation clause, and you can put in you can put whatever, agrees to pay $1,000. The other one is just $500. This one could be, I'll pay $5,000 above the highest offer, but not willing to exceed $550, but I'll go $5,000 over, not to exceed $5,000, or $550. I mean, I don't know, that's kind of crazy, but just as a scenario. So that's where you would put these things in there. Utilize these clauses. These are written up and drafted by attorneys, so they are proper verbiage. Here's a counter proposal clause. There's due diligence documents. If you needed some particulars on certain like the solar panels, read through these things too. So those are some of the bigger ones. Seller concessions here. And this can go for not just purchase price, but it has a lot of things in there too that are very helpful and save you a bunch of time. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole gist of it. And then we would go here. I would take this off again, like I told you. This is just going to enable the initials and only have the signature box only. Unless your lender specifies otherwise, I would take that off. It just makes it harder. So now that we've done all this, okay, we're almost done. We're going to save this sucker, okay? And then we're going to go print preview. So this is how you're going to want to really double check your stuff. Make sure all your boxes are checked. And then this is how you're going to this is what the buyer is going to see too when you go over it with them. Really go over the deadlines. You can really see it a lot better. Pull up your calendar and really check all that. And then you can see it, clean as day here. And then you're just going to kind of go through it. But you'll double check everything. But the most important thing once you get down here is going to be, make sure your client, there's your buyer. He has a signature box. We have a seller. Oh, wait, shoot. We are going to, make sure the seller is there. That's very important. And then we're going to go into our section. Okay, here's 32 is going to be the buyer, broker. You can read it here to be completed by the broker, but working with the buyer. And then we'll acknowledge that we do have it. Okay, well, yeah, we go back to here. Let's see, hold on. So we go back to the editable one here, buyer's agent, and then listing broker's firm. Save. So now it's a live contract. So we go to here, back to print preview. Okay, we'll go back to the bottom. Always make sure that your appropriate box. Okay, first off, make sure you get the buyer. Gotta make sure you get the seller. Make sure you got your box and your appropriate boxes are checked. Make sure all your information is accurate. It should be accurate through CTME. Do not touch the seller, the listing agent section. They will fill out what the appropriate box is for them, but you do want to make sure that it's there, that it has a signature box for Craig. It has the broker's license numbers. This was already auto-populated from the top. Remember when we did that part? So yeah, and then I wouldn't even sign yours either. Do not sign it. You know, you can kind of click your signature font or whatever you want. Don't save it. Don't do any of that until you go over it with your client and get their approval. Make sure everything is tightened up, because maybe they want to, as you're going over it, they want you to add a washer or that special chandelier, and so. And then they change so many times, and you'll have to really reduplicate it and all that stuff. But that's a quick little, well, not quick, but that is the a summary on how to write up an offer on contract to buy and sell real estate. I know it was a little long, but I hope it was informative. And if you ever have any questions, always feel free to contact me. Thanks.